With that, hi everyone. Thanks for joining us today. My name is Heather Barclay-Hamir. I am President and CEO of IFSA, the Institute for Study Abroad. And it's my pleasure to host today's conversation around how we can partner with career services to enhance the long-term impact of study abroad. So as the title shares, we're talking about enduring impacts. That's actually one of IFSA's organizational commitments. So it's naturally led us towards exploration and partnerships around how we can deepen impact of study abroad, not just in the short term, but in the long term. And recently, some specific activity around career readiness. So some of you may know that we are attempting to design programs that marry up what employers are seeking, specifically with what particular majors need. Marcy will drop into the chat a link to the most recent version of that, which is the Tech Career Accelerator in Prague, focused on computer science majors in the tech sector. And in the development of that, which is a kind of new approach to study abroad, where we're trying to layer in value and impact for students, it led us to some really great new colleagues and contacts in career services to explore from their perspective how study abroad fits in. And that is kind of what led us here today to this session. So in those conversations and this development work, it became really clear that we do have opportunities to connect more deeply and meaningfully with career services to benefit students in their futures. So really, I'm as interested to hear what our presenters have to say today as I think you are. And thank you for showing up and joining us today. Before we start, I have a few housekeeping items as always. So you will have noticed that we are recording today's session and a copy will go to everyone who registered. Feel free to turn off your camera if you'd prefer not to be visible. There is also the option to add live subtitles in Zoom. And so if you haven't seen that, if you hover over the buttons at the bottom of your screen, you should be able to access that. And you may have to update your settings to do that though. And last but not least, our presenters today have really interesting perspectives to share. If you're like me, it may spark some questions partway through, so please feel free to drop those into the chat. You're also welcome to offer your insights, advice for each other. It's not uncommon for the chat to kind of blow up while people are talking. And then at the end, we will have time for Q&A, and I will be sure to pull out, or Marcy will, any questions that we didn't get to during the presentation. So, and also if you have any tech issues, you can chat that too, and we will help you with that. So our panelists today are Joe Catrino, who's Executive Director of Career and Life Design at Trinity College in Connecticut, possibly one of the coolest titles I've ever heard for a job. Judy Hopkins does internship development and is a career coach at Washington State University. And Godlove Feng-Shui is Executive Director of International and Intercultural Programs at Prairie View A&M. Thank you all for being with us today. Joe, I will turn it over to you.
Awesome. Thank you, Heather. I appreciate it. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you might find yourself today. At this very moment, I'm Joe Catrino. I'm the Executive Director of Career and Life Design at Trinity College, a small liberal arts institution in Hartford, Connecticut. I'm here to talk to you a little bit today about our sort of vision and how we worked a little bit differently than a traditional career center. Marcy, if you could just go to the next slide, please. So we are, our mission and vision really focuses on empowering our students, and we're trying to help them become more active agents in designing their careers and to leverage that liberal arts education that they're getting to adapt to and transform the future of work. We're really focused on skill development. And I know you're going to hear from my colleagues, Judy and Godlove, later in this presentation that talk about, career competencies and just general skills and competencies, but that's really the thrust of what we're doing at Trinity. And so what we do is we've really partnered with a lot of different offices across the institution here at Trinity to help students develop those skills, advocate those skills, identify those skills. That's really been at the core of the work that we're doing. So next slide, please. So this is by far my favorite slide. I showed this a lot to parents. And just to give you a sense of what our office does, we thrive in chaos. So we were created to help students navigate transitions. And what that ultimately means is our students show up, as many I'm sure as yours do, and they have this idea of, I have this plan and it's a straight shot. And that's just what it's going to be. And we all realistically know that it's never like that. There are ups and downs, zigzags, loop-de-loops. And that's where the Career and Life Design Center navigates. We sit in that chaos. We help our students navigate in, through, out of, and beyond their time at Trinity. And so we really are working slightly differently than a traditional career office. Sure, we are a traditional career office where we work with juniors and seniors and help them, figure out their internships, their job search, their graduate school search. But really what we're trying to do is help students early on and help them navigate that transition into. So we have actually tilted our focus slightly on working with first years and sophomores and helping them, because you can't mention the word career to first year student because they're like, whoa. I just got here. Now you want to talk to me about leaving here? I'm not ready in that mindset. So we really have embraced that life design aspect. If you can go to the next slide, please. And this is all predicated on the book. I don't know if anybody's familiar with the book called Designing Your Life, written by Bill Burnett and Dave Evans. They're two Stanford professors. The book came out in 2016, and they actually at Stanford held a life design studio for higher ed professionals in the summer of 17. And we applied to go. We were one of a dozen schools chosen to attend that week to learn all about life design and design thinking and how that can be implemented at your institution. And so we attended that and came back with like 1.5 million ideas. And when we came back, we started to look at our structure and we wanted to do more. And again, we wanted to focus on helping students figure out who they were. And so if you look at this, if you look at the, the design here, this is design thinking. This is the process of design thinking where you accept that there's a problem. If you go to Stanford or anywhere on the West Coast, they'll call it wicked problem solving, which is what they call design thinking. We call creative problem solving. And so the idea here is to help students use design thinking to lead a life of meaning and purpose. And that's really what we are trying to do. Is our office is a little bit more of a holistic view than just career. We want to think about life, and that's where those transitions come in. That's where that chaos comes in. So we're helping students with executive functioning skills. We're helping students develop empathy for themselves because they can't design their way anywhere unless they know where they're standing today. So it's all about helping them put that pin in the ground. And then they start to define their problems or their opportunities. Then they start to ideate. They start to brainstorm. What are those possibilities? Is it study away? Is it academic research in the summer? Is it internships? Is it community action? Is it being a TA? All of those great things. And then they go out and test it. They actually go out and live those experiences because, as we all know, those lived experiences help our students become more informed decision makers about these things over here, the Trinity experience, their career, and then ultimately their life. Next slide, please. So what we have done is we actually when we created the Career and Life Design Center back in the spring of 21, we built it on these 3 pillars, and we built it on these 3 pillars with that middle pillar in mind, that experiential learning pillar. The college has just gone through and launching a new curriculum. It launched last fall. So our current sophomores are the first year that have this new curriculum. And in the new curriculum, it requires students to do co-curricular experiences. A very unique approach for Trinity because, listen, we're going to be 200 years old in 2023. We've been doing some things in the old school way. This has been a great opportunity for us to try some new stuff. And they added this co-curricular requirement, which encompasses study away, internships. And so we've been holistic about how we work in career and partner across study away, across the academic research institutes, so we can help students identify opportunities so that they can prototype, so they can we work with them to figure out who they are and help them define those interests and help them define what that, meaning and purpose might be for them. So we really try to hone in on that experiential learning and help them figure out what are opportunities for themselves. Next slide, please. So this is just a quick overview. I talked about the future of work, and as many of you know on this Zoom presentation here is, the future work is here. The pandemic disruption. We've immense technological disruption because of AI, because of machine learning, these advanced technologies. It's disrupting how we work. I mean, think about it. This might have been a conference we would do in person. Everything and the way we work has changed. And here's the tricky thing is the second job that many of our current students will have doesn't exist yet. So how do you prepare for something that doesn't exist? How do you prepare for ambiguity? Well, you think about your skills, you develop your skills. And so we talk about really is identifying, advocating, developing skills, and then tying in those co-curricular experiences to really give yourself a robust approach to how you might navigate and transform the future of work. Next slide, please. And I know I'm not going to spend too much time on this slide because I know Judy's got some good stuff on these skills in a few minutes, but these are skills that are identified. I'm not a big hard skills, soft skills guy. I'm more of a human skills and technical skills guy. But these are soft skills that are identified by employers. And so what we're talking about is these are skills that can be identified early on that students believe they already have, and we can help them develop them further through doing these co-curricular experiences, and then ultimately leveraging them for whatever it is after Trinity. So helping them say, okay, this could move me in a direction for this career, this could move me in a direction for that career, or graduate school, or a really competitive fellowship. Those are the types of things that we're really trying to hone in on. Next slide, please. And then these are, I know Judy's gonna spend some time. These are the NACE core competencies that have been identified. These are the core skills that employers are saying they want. And these are the skills that we're trying to help students focus on through the co-curricular experiences and helping them, through the process of coming in and getting a coaching appointment with our career and life design coaches. Next slide, please. And then again, this is really where we want students to think about how can they make themselves a really strong candidate for whatever it is, life after what we call Trinity, which is finding those transferable skills, being flexible and adaptable, and then having those technical skills. And those technical skills, as we all know, come in the forms of internships and on-campus jobs, study away. All of those things really help those students develop those technical and specific career skills. And so these are the things that we're really focused on in career and life design, is helping students identify, articulate, and sell themselves with a bunch of skills in front of them. So you can go to the next slide, please. So one of the things that we learned very quickly in this process is we had to spend a lot of time. Our coaching appointments aren't like you come in, you get your resume covered, we show you resources and handshake, and then we send you on your way. It's actually quite different. We actually spend a lot of time getting to know the student, because this is where I'm talking about putting that pin in the ground and finding where you are. And so what we've done is we've actually, during the pandemic, I was teaching a fellowship that I run. It's called the Design Fellowship. And pandemic hit and was like, how the heck am I going to finish these last 3 months of the semester and not going to see them in person? So we had to pivot, and I stumbled on this tool called Mural, and I'm going to get there in a minute. But when we talk about helping students figure themselves out, it starts with empathy, but it really starts with that self-empathy. Understanding who they are, what drives them, what motivates them, how are they feeling, what are they saying right now? So we actually, for us, it helped students sort of broaden their mindset so they can understand what their actual needs were and how they can then, once they figure that out, they navigate from there. Do they want to study abroad? Do they want to do research? This is understanding themselves can actually help them, again, become informed decision makers. And that's ultimately what we're trying to get done in career and life design. So next slide, please. So what I'd like to do for just a quick few minutes is actually share with you what it's like to do an empathy exercise. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to take over ownership of the slides, and I'm going to share my screen. In a minute in the chat, I'm going to drop a URL into the, here we go. Oh, wait, here we go. I'm going to drop I'm going to drop a URL for this empathy map, but this is the tool Mural. Can you see that, Marcy? Just making sure. Thumbs up. Okay, cool. Thanks. So we use these tools all the time. And so what we want to do is I'm going to invite you into this. And the beautiful thing about Mural is it costs nothing with a .edu address. I can actually share this link with you without you having to sign up for anything. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to share this URL and I'm going to invite you into this space. And all I want you to do is for 3 minutes, not even 2 minutes, I want you to go in and I want you to put yourself in the shoes of a current student who is contemplating their co-curricular experiences. And what I want you to do is, what is that student saying? What is that student thinking? And what is that person doing? And what are they feeling? And so what I want you to do is I want you to put yourself in those shoes of that student and really get a sense of what they're deliberating on for their global journey or their career design. And it's really easy when you come in here, and there's some instructions here on the left-hand side, as you can see, but if you come in here and you can say, you just double click and it'll actually create a post-it. And you can, and we're in the quadrant of thinking, you can say they're thinking about too many options, not enough time. Okay. And then you just create that post-it, and you can create as many post-its as you want. You can be creative and change the color of your post-it. All of those things are pretty easy. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to stop sharing for 1 minute, not even, and I'm going to drop this URL into the chat. And I'd like you to join me in the mural. And I would just like you to put yourself in the shoes of your student who's deliberating on what their co-curricular options are. How might they decide? And again, all they're trying to do is get a sense of who they are. And I can see, I'm not going to share my screen because it might throw you off, but I see everybody's joining us and you have your own character. Some of you are visiting birds. I see there's a visiting cat. There's a visiting giraffe, got a visiting shark, visiting lion. And what I want you to do is just for the next minute or two, just get a sense of building empathy for your students. And it gets a little crazy with the amount of people in here, but go ahead and try it. Great, a lot of good ones coming in. What are they doing? What are they feeling? What are they thinking? What are they saying? So we'll just do this for like another 30 seconds or so. Marcy, when we come back, you can take over on the slides right after we wrap this up. Thanks. So you all have access to this. That link will not change. So feel free to keep going in there and checking it out. If anyone has any questions about Mural, I would be happy to answer those questions. I taught a whole J-term course essentially on Mural. I've used this tool extensively over the last almost 3 years at this point. So if anybody has follow-up questions about Mural, you can just email me. I'd be happy to answer those questions. But if we can come back, Marcy's going to go share my last slide, which is really just a quick reflection on just empathy. So one more switch there, Marcy. There we go. Thanks. Again, this is really critical to the work that we're doing. We have to know where students are. So getting into to what drives them, what are they thinking, what are they saying, what are they doing, what are they feeling, that helps us get a deeper understanding to help them navigate what that co-curricular experience could be, whether it's study away or research or internships. And then it helps, we can then help them articulate and communicate their skills for career readiness and a global experience. That's really what it's about, is really getting a better sense of who they are and what drives them so they can make informed decisions. So with that, thank you so much for your time. I'm happy to answer any questions about my content, but thank you.
All right, yay. Thank you so much, Joe. This is exciting to be a part of and see how the experience that I had in our study abroad in Prague program sort of fits into that sort of internal awareness that you're trying to develop in your students. So that's awesome. It was literally my absolute pleasure to co-lead a 25-day, 6-credit professional development focused career exploration abroad program in Prague in the Czech Republic. And this was a Washington State University faculty-led program where we got to partner with IFSA for a really uniquely focused opportunity for the 13 students who attended. Our students really made significant gains in career readiness skills abroad while networking with both national and international employers. We took the opportunity to create an assessment, a pre and post assessment, so we're able to kind of get a little bit better idea of where students' growth occurred. So that was a part of the program as well. So in summary, really the innovation or the innovative efforts that students initiated in this program, I think easily integrated into their goals of being work ready upon graduation. That's what we all want, right? For students to be work ready upon their completion of their higher education experience. So we can go to the next slide. Thanks, Marcy. So our custom career exploration abroad program focused on 2 career development courses and 1 IFSA course called Reimagining Europe. It was at a local university. And then we had site visits to 9 professional sites based on students' field of interest. So not only did students have the chance to network with professionals, but actually integrated into the program was an opportunity to connect with college-age peers through a unique sort of storytelling and interaction, some games that we did as well. So the program also focused on multiple NACE career competencies that Joe actually referred to a little bit earlier. Those NACE competencies have been updated, I think, in 2021. And we've got a link right here for those. And we're going to share this link also in the chat so you can have access to it. As I mentioned, we had multiple career competencies that students were able to integrate into their experience. I'm just going to highlight 3. For the career and self-development competencies, students had the opportunity to identify their own field of interest. And Yana, our IFSA on-ground staff, networked to create a varied site visits ranging from the headquarters of Radio Free Europe to the Fulbright Commission on our excursion to Berlin, and Wunderman Thompson, which is an international advertising company, as well as the U.S. Embassy in Prague. We had a Washington State University alumni who was working there, and we got to integrate that. So it was awesome. I think communication was another really key competency that students were able to develop. Students researched each site. They prepared informational interview questions, and they networked personally with the leadership of each organization where they got to practice those professional conversations. And we had them write handwritten thank yous at the end of the excursion. Then we had our final one that I'm going to focus on is actually equity and inclusion. Previously, you may be familiar with, I believe it was referred to as cultural fluency. That was sort of the context that I used to previously kind of connect students with, but the NACE competencies has sort of expanded that to equity and inclusion. And students were able to take a course in conversational check. They had a chance to practice and learn about money equivalencies and what social expectations would be within the community and in professional settings as well. So they were really able to immerse themselves in the culture. They engaged with learning values, really a historical context lens was able to be introduced in their coursework as well. And I think new ways of seeing life experiences, of course. So one practical example I have shared is a student had been quite well versed in cultural expectations in public transit. Godlove talked about earlier about public transit challenges that can happen internationally. We boarded a city bus to travel to one of the site visits, and the student actually seated herself in a location that was reserved for the elderly. And when an elderly person got on the bus, she did not stand to give up her place. And the elder actually wrapped the student on the leg with her cane to get her to stand up. Now this failure to attend to her surroundings really created a chance for us as a group to later look back and reflect on the need to be flexible, to pay attention. Those marginalized communities sometimes we're not very attentive to, and really be more thoughtfully adaptive. So some great in the moment learning. Let's go to the next slide, please, Marcy. Thank you. There were some definite solid hits for us in the program. And what I wanted to spend a little bit of time on is really tips for professional development opportunities in study abroad programs. So thinking about how you and the programs that you're considering you might integrate. We did have international and US resume reviews. So we had students work on both, where they had the opportunity to learn some of the distinctive differences between these documents internationally. And for me, I guess I'm thinking that this really kind of represents the strength of cross-cultural emphasis with all the professional experiences our students had. As I mentioned before, we had them write handwritten thank yous. I am a big fan of handwritten thank yous. I think that it's obviously very important that students write emails in return to any of the professional experiences that they have. But I believe that often those little things are what make individuals stand out and students can stand out as a result of. So that handwritten thank you is a little thing that can make a big difference. Then we had an opportunity to have an etiquette dinner, and this photo is actually a picture of our etiquette dinner. It was led by a professor from the university where the students were attending class. He was Italian and had a ton of insight into similarities and differences in sort of social and professional etiquette in the context, in the European context, and how those might compare and contrast with the US. So just a brilliant experience. The professional site visits were solid gold. It was an enormous success that I would recommend any program to be able to really increase the value out for students to be able to have the opportunity to visit a professional location and occupational location that aligned with their interests. The opportunity for students to network with local students who attended the university was also a great bonus. It helped our students to sort of gain a broader perspective, social awareness, how similar and different they were from the students that they met. So again, kind of increasing cultural fluency. And then this is something that Joe actually tied in the idea of life design, the concept of being a co-creator or being engaged in what you're paying attention to, what's important to you as an individual. This concept was introduced to me by a national leader in experiential learning by the name of Victor Saad. His organization is called Experience Institute, and he's also worked with Stanford on life design. So another kind of cool connection today that I didn't think of. This suggestion of students being co-creators for our program really help the students to be a part of decision making that help them to be able to see the components that could be uniquely theirs in the program. So for example, the students got to decide, do they want to have a hiking excursion when we were in the southern part of the Czech Republic in Brno, or did they want to participate in a bike tour of the city of Berlin, or some other experience? So it was those kinds of things that enriched students' particular opportunities to be co-creators. Let's see, and next slide, please. Maximizing networks is one of the things that we wanted to make sure we paid attention to today as well. And I think one of the most challenging things about studying abroad is that sometimes there's a cost on top of course fees that make it difficult for deserving students. So by networking with employer partners and others across campus, we created scholarship opportunities so more students could take advantage of the experience. Students had to apply through our website, and we had an independent committee that reviewed the application. So it made it something that was a really fair experience for everyone. Expeditors is an organization that is a partner with WSU, and they provided a lump sum scholarship fund that we divided into several smaller portions. Washington State University Distinguished Scholarships, a campus partner, had one scholarship that we met the criteria for, the Massey Family Scholarship, so our students got to apply for that. And then Kohl's provided gift cards for our students who needed extra support to buy professional clothing for those site visits. We invited all of the students who were going on the program to apply, for that financial support. And one of the students got $75 worth of professional clothing, so it was great. Today, we actually have what we call a career closet that we could have used. We didn't have it at the time of the program, but if you, in your programs, in your career departments, if you have a career closet, then that's another possible opportunity for your students to get to participate. So that's it for me. Thank you so much.
Hello, everyone. Gottlob von Jering is my name. I'm Executive Director of International Programs here at Peer Review A&M University in Texas. I'd like to share with you some of my experiences partnering with career services in support of students as they go through the degree programs and preparing for a career. I'm going to my second year here, so some of the things I will talk about are things that I did elsewhere, but many of them have started and some have actually done here. But most of the things I will talk about are things that are currently happening here. Next slide, please. So one of the things that we do is what we call a re-entry workshop. So when students study abroad, we found that when they return and you ask them, how was your experience? And they say, oh yes, it was an experience of a lifetime, and then they end there. But there is more to that story than that. And typically they learn a lot, but they don't know how much they actually learn. And we help them through this program to be able to articulate that. And so we go through with them and help them explain what they learned and actually develop bullets and put on their CVs. And we in the international office partner with career services to make this happen. For example, it's very common to ask a student to give you details of what they learned or what happened, and the things they list as failures end up being those things that are most impactful, that you would think that would have been natural for them to say, wow, this was tough and I did it, but no. And so you need to work them through that. They may say things such as, oh, that trip was good, except that the faculty member did not give us good directions. We got lost and it took a long time to get there. We had to take the train by ourselves. At first, the food was not good. We managed through. And so when we hear all of that, we then turn it around for them and say, well, think about it. If you were sitting at an interview and you told somebody that you went to study abroad in Paris, place with a different language, and you were left alone, and you actually took the bus on your own or the train, made your way back, what would they think of you? Would they think of you as failure or success, or a successful person? And then they blink and go, I think they would think that I did well. I said, okay. So now what you're saying here is that in that story that you thought was something really bad, but you've managed to tell your potential employer that you are resilient and that you can improvise. And you talked about working your way through some food that you didn't like, but it also shows that you can cope with adverse situations. And so we kind of talk them through those things and have them embed that and learn how to talk about it in a potential interview, because this is what sets them apart from the students who didn't study abroad, or the students who studied abroad and just went through the motions and just followed somebody and never really did anything creative for themselves. So, and over the years, as I've done this, what I found out is that the students get it more if some of this is actually included in the pre-departure orientation that we give the students, so that they kind of know what to anticipate. So when it happens, it doesn't look like the world has ended suddenly. And also they can identify it as a learning moment. It doesn't always work, but when they come back, that is when we work with them on that. And then when they return, we also try to help them talk about this to others. We connect them with students in other classes, with faculty who may have a segment on in their course that requires something along the lines of what the student experienced. And in talking about this, they internalize it more. And sometimes that is actually a mechanism for recovering from homesickness. Homesickness is not only when you travel abroad, but sometimes you stay there for a semester or a year. When you come back, there's homesickness the other way. By talking about it, you kind of overcome some of that by just sharing your experiences there. So that's what we do in this program and more. Next slide, please. The other thing we do, and this is a new program we have here at Prairie View A&M University, we had significant funding from a corporation to help revamp our career services. And that money is being used to do a lot of things, but I just want to highlight this one aspect, which I think is really relevant here, which is having career services partner with academic departments. The idea here being that by having faculty invested in the career aspect of students' lives, it does help a lot. For one thing, when a faculty member says something, the student pays more attention to it than if it comes from somebody else, because they know this is the person who is telling me something that is going to be good, either because, you know, I'll do well on that test, or it helps me towards graduation. It's academic, it's very important. So getting faculty involved is very good. So we have worked with the deans to identify faculty advisors in the different respective departments to help provide this advice to students. But we also understand that faculty don't come into this as trained career advisors. So we sought training for them from brought outside people, and our career services staff provide some of the training to kind of give them some tools to work with when they talk with the students. And the hope is that by getting faculty involved and giving them some of these tools, the faculty will know how to do even more research to kind of help students point to careers that they are aware of. But they do this not in isolation. They do it also in partnership with career services. Sometimes the students may be referred to career services for more, and sometimes it could be a joint conversation. And by so doing, the students are getting this information from both areas. And for most university campuses, you can have students that only find out about career services in their senior year. And this is an effort to make sure that this can happen sooner. So we've identified some core courses that almost every student takes. And we're working with faculty to embed a career component in those courses, like English composition, for example. And we have them in every area. We have even engineering and business courses that have some kind of, even nursing, some kind of career component in them, so that by the time the students come just first, second year, they're already being introduced to this aspect of their futures. And so that's what we're using some of these funds for, and also paying faculty course release time. So it is an expensive endeavor, but I think it's one that is worthwhile. With funding, I think this is something that I would encourage institutions to really consider doing. Next slide, please. The other aspect of our, besides career integration, the other way we help students in their career preparation is in a new program we have here in international programs called the Peace Corps Preparatory Program. This is a partnership we have with the National Peace Corps organization that allows us to offer to work students through a set of requirements, at the end of which they are issued a certificate that is signed by the National Director of the Peace Corps. And the content of the curriculum of this certificate is similar to the training that Peace Corps volunteers receive before they go abroad. And the idea here is that by the time the students graduate, they would have achieved some of the competencies they need to work in places with people from different cultures, or let's just say with international development organizations, for example. And if they apply for the Peace Corps, they have a much better chance of being accepted, because the Peace Corps is really competitive. They can use this to apply for jobs with international organizations. This program was initially restricted to US citizens, because only US citizens can be Peace Corps. But in recent years, they've changed that. It's now open to international students as well, because the US government determined that the skills learned in this program could help the international students in other parts, even if they're not going to apply for the Peace Corps. It's a program that is really helpful in developing students' global perspectives. Essentially, the way it's built is you have multiple sectors. You have multiple program components. First, you have sector training. Sector training is the students training in their major. So you have agriculture, for example, education, health, and the like. And then you also have foreign language skills. That's the other sector. Now that component is not mandatory. It's only mandatory if you decide that you're going to work for the Peace Corps in a particular part of the world. Say if you're going to work in various parts of Latin America, then Spanish is required. Various parts of West Africa, then French is required. But all the other languages is not required. The Peace Corps will help you learn those languages before you go. So there is that sector. The other sector is intercultural component. So we've designed a curriculum where we tell the students which courses to take to satisfy that. And then the last aspect of it is professional and leadership development. And this component is the area in which we partner again with career services. Here, the students work with career service to review their resumes. And in addition to reviewing their resumes, they also do interview practice and also help to demonstrate their leadership competencies. So the students are expected to do something in leadership. It could be part of the student government, organizational, serving on some committee, leading some effort. And the career service staff help guide them and give them some suggestions on things to do to satisfy this competency. And once they've satisfied all of these, we then recommend them for the certificate, and the Peace Corps office sends us those certificates, which we issue to them at graduation with a court. They love courts, and it becomes a testament to that they have prepared themselves to work in different parts of the world. Again, I talked about intercultural competency. You can satisfy that by studying abroad, for example. And for those students who can study abroad, we have a selection of courses that they can take and activities they can do in country that will satisfy that competency as well. So that's what we do in this area. So I'm happy to answer any questions you might have. Thank you.
Wonderful. Thank you so much to each of you. You know, the more people I speak to have this emphasis on career readiness, life design, which Joe introduced me to. I've never heard of that before. The more interesting I find the potential for intersection between the work we do in study abroad and this work that your areas do to really think about what happens after study abroad from our vantage point. So we did get a few questions that came in advance. And for those of you who are with us, feel free to unmute and share more or put things in the chat. So I'm wondering, I'm assuming the presenters can all see that. If you have some advice for some of our attendees, ooh, so many of them, Marcy. First, any ideas for maximizing sessions for diverse experiences and large group sessions? I know there's always that tension between how to support the individual student and how to support a high number of students. What recommendations would you have?
Well, I can say a little bit about the cost of study abroad, because that's something that I deal with every day. It is really expensive. And so we try to focus on areas that cost less to break down some of the financial barriers. One of them is just developing faculty-led programs. This, of course, are programs that involve a faculty developing a program and taking groups of students. It's an existing course, and they travel with the students and conduct some activities abroad, and then they return and they have credits for that course. That is usually less expensive than sending the student to an institution or sending the student with some other organization. So that's one way to reduce costs. The other aspect is to develop exchange partnerships. So there are two ways you can have students study abroad. If they can go pay another institution, go there, learn, and then come back. Or you can go into an agreement with the other institution and say, each year or every 5 years, we agree that I'll send X number of students to you, and you will send the same number of students to me. And that process will be tuition neutral. So I'm not going to charge tuition to your students. You will not charge tuition to my students. All they have to pay is their living costs, food, room and board, and then of course the flight. That way, the student now can work on maybe raising funds, get some scholarships to reduce further some of that cost. And for students traveling abroad, typically the cost of room and board abroad is much less than here. And so they end up not spending as much. Once it's tuition neutral for our students, sometimes it's more challenging for the students coming in just because of the relative cost of things. So exchange programs tend to be that part, of course. The other way is to just try and get scholarship money, work with development office to raise funds towards this. So those are some of the strategies that we are employing here.
Thanks for that, Godlove. I think you've actually answered a couple of questions here at the same time. I'm wondering, do any of you know of any free tools that small education abroad offices can use to extend returnees' learning from abroad?
Yeah, Mural.
Perfect.
Yeah, I mean, so I mentioned this a little bit in my part, but you can actually do quite a bit with Mural. There really aren't a lot of limitations, and the sole purpose of Mural is collaboration. It's teamwork. It's building in different projects. You can do a lot of different things with Mural. Some of the other tools that are out there that are similar are there's Jamboard. There's also Miro, M-I-R-O. I have used pretty much all of those. I just happen to have an affinity for Mural. No, I'm not paid by Mural. I'm not sponsored by them. I just really liked what they had. And again, it was free for me with the .edu address. And I liked that I could create links like I shared with all of you today, and you didn't have to sign in. So I could collaborate without you having to create an account and go through all these steps. You were able to jump right into the collaboration board. And again, free tool, and you could track a whole bunch of different things in there.
Yeah, that was pretty cool. Thank you for bringing that experience to us. Yeah. Judy or Godlove, any other recommendations you'd like to add? All right, well, I feel like we got a little treasure trove with our Mural experience. That was a lot of fun. I liked watching all the animals add their very insightful comments too. So I'm wondering, we maybe have time for one more. This is an eternal one and one that we deal with at IFSA too. So we have a commitment to enduring impact, but of course, enduring means it's happening out there into the future. Do any of you have anything you'd like to share about how you track data between study abroad and future career impacts, or what you might suggest or hope to do even?
I mean, I think for us, we're not really tracking yet. We are building that out. I'm working closely with Jennifer Summerhays here at Trinity, and we're working on a couple of different things on how we can work better together and track data. We have a couple ideas in the hopper that are probably going to come out more towards spring. But I will say, like, I think going back to the empathy thing is, we really try to pair with Study Away so we can help students make those informed decisions. And, so my advice is, find partners in career development or career services or whatever it might be called at your institution. Because, a lot of times you may get someone who shows up a student who might show up at a Study Away who's really lost. They think they want to study away, and maybe they do. But having those conversations about why, about getting that meaning and that purpose, and really, I think, helping students set that intentionality so that they can really get the best experience for themselves because they've actually looked inward. Those are happening. I would say maybe it might not be career development at your institution. It might be like an academic advising, center. But find those partners that you can partner with, so you're getting students that really are going to make the most out of their experience abroad and really dig in and really emphasize the work that they want to do long term.
I'll just say something really briefly about the way I integrate those concepts in the internship course that I teach. I start really at the very beginning of the course talking about personal values and work values, because we know from research that when students have a greater sense of awareness of what internally motivates them to do the thing that they think they want to do, there really is a greater satisfaction in that life experience. So, you know, it's not rocket science, but it is an important correlation, right, for students to understand. And once there's that framework to be able to have a sense that, oh, this is what's important to me, it can be well integrated across the student's experience. For example, in a study abroad or study away experience, but also in a local internship or a local job or a permanent position, when students are looking for the permanent type of work that they want to do when they graduate, they'll have practiced this internal sort of process of what's important to me, and then be able to put that into practice in their next steps.
So I have not tracked that information, but I know the value of that data because I have been seeking it recently as I was trying to make the case for a freshman study abroad program. I will share with you some of that research, and I think that is probably what the person who asked the question really wants. I'll share that with you after this, and you can share, Marcy, you can share with them. But the data shows that if you track students who have had this study abroad experiences, they tend to perform better. They graduate sooner. They get jobs and better jobs quicker. That is what I found in the literature, and they help with retention. These students, once they have this intensive experience, that is why I'm trying to get a freshman study abroad program. When they return, they spend more time really reminiscing what has just happened to them, and while they're there, they're talking about what is really going on instead of being lost, which is really sometimes what causes them the alienation, sense of not belonging. They get something to hold on to right away, and that helps with retention. And then those students are more likely to also go abroad again. And so, yes, there are many advantages to study abroad. And I will share some of the literature from my research with you, and you can share with the person who asked the question.
Absolutely. You probably have this in your literature that you're talking about sharing God love, but there are some studies that talk about long-term impacts of alums. There was a study in I want to say the early to mid 2000s from the University of Minnesota. It's called the SAGE study. Interviewing alumni years later and finding out what mattered to them and what impact their experience had. And students, all of us who've had the experience do tend to say it's life-changing, and it was actually borne out in the feedback of alumni. I do think for our institutions and our professional field of education abroad, we need to get better about tracking correlations if we can. There's a lot of anecdotal out there and not enough research yet, and I'm not sure if you know this, God love, but the degree completion and retention was my dissertation topic too. So there's a whole body of research there, and less so on what are career impacts, how is this shaping employees, how does it change their job path and how they're received at work. So lots of potential dissertation topics for the many up and comers out there.
Yes.
So that is, believe it or not, that's pretty much time for us. We do have another educator webinar coming up. Health and safety, the pandemic is not done. Health and safety is never, I think, going to go back to the background of study abroad. So we'll have a regional health and safety perspective on Latin America and the Caribbean. Hope that you will join us then, and then more leadership series webinars coming up starting in December. So really appreciate all of you for sharing this great information. I definitely came away with more things to think about as we continue to think about how our work can connect to career services, career and life design. And thanks to all of you for attending and for watching later. We appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Pleasure. Good to have you with us.